on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by the Alpha Wealth Group, bringing the trilogy of estate, tax, and investment planning together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Steve Moore missed my wonderful stem winder on Kim Reynolds earlier in the hour because I had my times confused, but I'm not going to repeat myself. He'll have to listen to the podcast.
Okay.
He knows the story on Kim Reynolds.
Well, just give us the cliff notes.
Well, the story on Kim Reynolds and Republicans is they're reducing taxes, they're generating budget surpluses, and Iowa's a going concern. That's the opposite of what's happening in New York, and New York wants to increase the pace of its doom loop. In New York City, Congresswoman AOC, head of the Socialist Spice Girls, front girl.
They're all celebrating this morning.
They're pushing a top 5% of New Yorkers, top 5% targeting, with $15 billion increase in state income taxes that will dip down into people making just over $250,000 a year, which doesn't go as far in New York City as you might think. Really interesting. And why are they doing that? Because people are fleeing New York City and New York because the taxes are too high. We'll stop that. We'll make them higher. Great. Makes perfect sense. The current progressive rate is 6% for taxable incomes for households earning more than $161,000 to up to $323,000, and then 6.85 after that. 7.5% would be the new rate imposed starting at incomes at $250,000. And then it would jump to 10% for household incomes between $1 million and $2 million. Well, that's perfect because that'll encourage any millionaires left in New York City to make their way to Southwest Florida. More for us, I suppose. For more on this, Steve Moore, economist and Govzilla author, joins us. Thanks, Steve. I know you want to talk about the speakership, and we'll get to that. But I just love the contrast, the reporting out of what we're seeing from Iowa under Kim Reynolds and Republicans there versus what we're seeing in these blue states that are circling the drain.
Well, let's start with Kim Reynolds. I mean, the woman is a superstar, right? If I could handpick any person, please don't tell Donald Trump I said this, but if I could handpick who the Republican nominee would be for president, it would be Kim Reynolds. Kim Reynolds would be a total nightmare for the Democrats, a soccer grandmother who's revived Iowa. Now, she's helped by the fact that she's got a crazy neighbor, Illinois.
Yeah, right.
But
tell him
the fact
he's
is she's a wonderful woman. I've gotten to know her really well. She's smart. She's tough. I call her America's Margaret Thatcher, and I believe that. She's tough as nails. She was so committed to school choice so that every child in Iowa would have access to a good or great school. She took out 7 Republicans who voted against her. She took them out in the in the midterm elections last year, and then she got her school choice bill done. So she's a superstar. Right? Keep an eye on her, folks. I've told President Trump that it's a no-brainer that when he becomes the nominee, and it looks like he's going to, that Kim Reynolds is the clear.
Well, what was his response to that? Because he's, like she's
I
not
love
kissing the
Donald
ring
Trump.
enough.
He's mad at. You know why he's mad at Kim Reynolds?
Why?
Because she won't endorse him.
She won't endorse him. And
she's letting the people of Iowa decide for themselves.
Exactly. And she said, and I told, when I talked to Kim Reynolds about that, she said, well, Steve, I can't, I'm in my job as governor, I really can't endorse. That's, but anyway, I think they could kiss and make up. But I want to get back to this story about the raising the tax rates in New York. You understated how high taxes are, Dan, because a lot of people don't realize this. You're right. The state income tax is something like 7.5%, 8%. But don't forget,
city income tax.
If you live in New York City, you pay another 6.5%. So it's this dueling contest between California and New York to see which state can have the highest income tax. New York is at 13.5%, and California is at 14%. And, of course, those are the two states that are losing the most money. So people who say that taxes don't affect behavior, just look at what's happening in New York and California. Now, under this new proposal, and we have an item in our hotline that you haven't seen yet because it just was sent out, we go through that idiot proposal of soak the rich. By the way, there aren't going to be rich people left in New York. the income tax would go up to 20% in New York City, on top of the 37% federal income tax. I mean, that's what millionaire would stay in New York?
It's a good thing that people with resources don't have mobility. Yeah, right.
Yeah. But you know what? The good thing for New Yorkers, they have plenty of people because they're getting these floods of illegal immigrants.
Yeah. That's right. I think the household incomes are a little bit lower.
Services. You know, we can't pay for all the services for these illegals. Well, you've chased out the people who pay 80% of the taxes. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. There's a lot. I mean, you know, we can talk about the dumb Republicans and what they did yesterday, but, you know, there's a lot of pretty dumb progressive liberals, too.
Well, and there's a lot. And the nice thing is, and Kim Reynolds, by the way, has been my sort of first choice for Trump as his VP from the outset, too. But,
for sure.
But that's the nice thing. There's a lot of good Republican governors, and Iowa, the story about Iowa and the Wall Street Journal write-up on Iowa, it's just a reminder, as I was saying earlier before you joined us, that conservative reform economics only works everywhere it's been tried. It worked in the Midwest in the 90s under conservative reform governors. It's working. It worked into the 2000s under Walker in Wisconsin. It's working in the 2020s under Kim Reynolds and I mean, it only works everywhere it's tried.
Yeah, I mean, the lower taxes, the right to work, which is a big issue, and I believe Illinois is not a right to work state. So this basically says that it's worker freedom. By the way, I love Gavin Newsom. He's going to have this big debate, as you know, with DeSantis, which I think is great because I think Americans have to see the contrast between, you know, a progressive blue state and a freedom red state. But Gavin Newsom is making the case, Dan and Amy, that, ready for this? California is a freedom state.
Yeah, right.
Well, freedom is slavery. Yeah, right. Orwellian.
Funny.
Yeah.
Because you get free drugs and you get free homeless shelter.
That's real freedom. Yeah.
Real
freedom is state dependency.
All right, Stephen Moore, who's going to be the next Speaker of the House? We learned earlier this morning, we had Congressman LaHood on, and he said that Congressman Scalise has already phoned him asking for his support. So what do you think?
Yep. So, I mean, what I'm hearing, and by the way, it's total chaos, and I haven't always been the biggest fan of McCarthy. I thought he was a pretty good speaker, given, you know, the old saying about being Speaker of the House, your job is to herd cats.
Right.
And boy, did he learn that lesson. And so I think it was. I agree with the Wall Street Journal editorial this morning that the Republicans cut their heads off. But now you've got this fight between. It's not a fight, but I think it's a contest between Steve Scalise, who look, the guy took a bullet for America. I mean, he's a great American, and Jim Jordan, and those two, given the circumstances, are the two best choices that could be made. So. Everybody knows Jim Jordan. He's a solid free market conservative, been great on the Judiciary Committee, but Steve Scalise is a great guy too. So among those two, I'm not even going to pick a favorite because I think they're both. I mean, as you know, the big issue with Scalise is that he has melanoma, and so he's going through chemotherapy, and that's a tough thing to do and be Speaker of the House.
And Jim Jordan wants it this time around when neither he nor Scalise wanted it back in January.
Yeah, they're working it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And they're both good guys, but again,
the question is somebody who knows the machinations of Congress. We talked to Selena Zito about this too, and
I don't understand it. Do you understand it? I can't figure out what the hell is going on.
Well, I mean, in terms of in this respect, I mean, do you expect that Scalise or Jordan, who I think for most conservatives would say these are conservative legislators, they provided leadership.
Absolutely. Definitely.
So are they going to be able to accomplish more than McCarthy has so far?
No.
Okay.
Because you've got, look, I mean, you've got a razor-thin majority in the House because the midterm elections were bad last year for Republicans. They should have picked up 25 seats, and they only picked up, 6. And so, you've got – that means – I want people to understand this. There are 435 members of the House, right? The Republicans have, I think, 221, 222. I forget the exact number. That means every single vote, you have to have near unanimity of Republicans to pass things. And that's why McCarthy, I think he did, under the circumstances, a pretty good job because the Democrats don't care about financial sanity. They want to spend and borrow from now into infinity. And my problem with what happened yesterday with this revolt is it takes the eye off the ball. The villain is not Kevin McCarthy. If you're concerned about runaway government spending, the fact that we have a $33 trillion debt headed to $50 trillion, which I hope every listener of the show is concerned about this. This is as serious as a heart attack. The villain here is Joe Biden. It's not Kevin McCarthy. So we've got to get rid of Biden, not McCarthy. And I think this has only clouded the picture.
Yeah, you know what it seems to me like with this group of 8 and those that are inclined to be supportive of the group of 8 that had no plan. It's just indiscriminate killing, and it's what it is because they haven't gotten the scalps they want. They'll take Kevin McCarthy's scalp. They'll take the scalp they can get rather than the scalps they actually want.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it was personal. And, I really do feel that McCarthy was treated unfairly. And, after the vote on the House floor when he went down, the 200 Republicans stood there and gave McCarthy a standing ovation. So, it's tough because you really literally had 6 Republicans hijack the House.
Steve Moore, economist, Godzilla author. Steve, thanks as always.
Okay, guys. I was like Mick Jagger this morning. I was 45 minutes late. That's.
It's all right. We'll let it go. Dan's still licking his wounds, but he'll get over it. It's going to toughen him up. Annie joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
When this is the sound of a crackling campfire on a cool evening, you can sit back and relax. But when it's the sound of your counters and cabinets smoking and smoldering following a house fire that's affected your entire kitchen, you need to pick up the phone and call 1-800-SERVPRO. Only the cleanup and restoration specialists at ServPro can help make fire and water damage like it never even happened. So make the call to 1-800-ServPro when fire damage strikes. Franchises are independently owned and operated.
Hi, I'm Test Director Rick from ServPro, the leader in cleaning, restoration, and construction. It's my job to make sure our pros are prepared for anything. Storm damage? Fixed. Flood damage? We're on it. Fire damage? Not anymore. Aliens? What aliens? We cleaned those sites a while ago. No matter the disaster, our pros will make it like it never even happened. Find out why ServPro is the #1 choice for residential and commercial restoration projects large and small. Visit servpro.com today.